Deep Space Nine is a fan favorite show amongst superfans of the Star Trek universe. It's beloved for its unique cast of characters, its emphasis on family and redemption, and its fearless analysis of the effects of war on all parties involved. It's been decades since the last episode aired, and I am finally ready to go through the series for the very first time. Join me as I share my most and least favorite episodes, character highlights, and honest reactions to this epic show. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Savage Stream, the weekly live stream where we talk all things Trek. And today we are going to be talking about my top 10 favorite episodes from season 7 of Deep Space Nine. So for those of you who don't know, I totally watched TNG, I watched all of Voyager, and somehow I missed this show. Like I saw a few episodes when it aired, but not a lot. So I've gone through over the last couple of months through every single episode for the first time, and it's been such a blast. Before I get started, I want to shout out all the people who are here live, and if you're here watching on the replay, hello, welcome. There's timestamps below, so you can jump ahead at any time. I also want to shout out PS2 Chipper for gifting 50 memberships, which that is so gracious. I love how you think that there will be 50 people on this live stream. But if you want to be a member of the channel, now is your time. I think that this is like timed or something. I think if you don't do it before the little green bar disappears, it goes away. So you do have to enable it. It's some YouTube situation. But if you do want to become a channel member, now is your time. Everyone is welcome. And I've got some new emojis just for channel members. So I'm super excited to talk about that. But let's jump into the first episode that I want to review, and then we can talk about the new emojis, and I would love to hear your thoughts of your favorite episode from season 7. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Season 7, Episode 2, Shadows and Symbols. Romulans create a military base on one of Bajor's moons under the pretext of creating a hospital. Colonel Kira stages a blockade and gladly risks war to keep her people from being oppressed again after the war is over. In other news, Cisco travels to Tyree to uncover the truth about his visions and his origins, and we get to see Benny Russell again. So the first episode of season 7, episodes 1 and 2, I think it's like a multi-part. I don't know if it's like a 2-parter, 6-parter. What I don't even know how many parts are at the beginning of this, but episodes 1 and 2 are pretty much the same story. And episode 1 it's not super meaty. It feels a little bit foundational, kind of like a typical TNG part 1, where it's building up all the anticipation, everything gets answered in part 2. But in part 2, there are some things in it that I'm just like, oh, I really love this. One of the things, obviously, is Benny Russell. Yes, hello, like we get to see Benny Russell again. The sad part is he is in an insane asylum, it looks like. He's in some kind of mental institution, but he's allowed a pencil, so that's different. And he's writing down the story of what's happening to Cisco on Tyree on the walls. And so he gets to this point where he's like, Cisco, I don't know, whatever he writes, he like uncovers an orb. He uncovers a hidden orb on Tyree. And Benny Russell's writing it. And the doctor's like, put the pencil down, Benny, put it down. You need to let go of this fantasy. And he's like, I can't, because Cisco needs to know what's in the orb. He needs to restore the prophets. And the doctor's like, Benny, this is all made up. And you see Cisco and he's like, flashing back and forth between Benny, and he's looking at the box, like the orb, he hasn't opened it yet, and he's looking at the sand, and he's just like, and then he just starts putting the sand back on and just digging. And the whole time he's doing this, by the way, Ezri is there, because hello Ezri, we've met a new Dax that we're supposed to love immediately. And Jake is there, and Grandpa Joe is there, which he should not be out here. This is not the space for Grandpa Joe. Like, he probably needs to be home. This is a lot of desert. But anyways, they're there, but Cisco's not really aware of them. Like at one point, he was kind of trying to help them keep up and paying attention. But then at another point, he just kind of snapped. He snapped from reality. So they're trying to shake him or figure out what's going on. And he's just pushing them off. And he's so obsessed. But at the same time, he can't move forward because Benny Russell can't move forward. And you're like, what the heck is going to go on? What's going to happen? Like, how's this going to work? Well, Benny Russell wins and he finishes telling Cisco's story. And so Cisco uncovers the orb again. He opens it, and then that reawakens all of the other orbs, which had gone dark, and it reopens the temple to the prophets, and Bajor's faith in the prophets is restored. It's super cool. Like I really like that. There's a lot of other things going on in this episode as well. Like I said, we meet Esri, who I think we might have met her in the last, remind me, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but we might have met her in the last scene of the first episode as like a surprise before everything went dark. But the other, I guess, I don't know if the Cisco thing is the A plot or the B plot. I don't really remember. But the other plot is what's going on Deep Space Nine. So Kira has been promoted. Yay, Kira. She is now Colonel Kira. And the Romulans are now allies, which is a big deal because that's new. But the thing is, this Romulan senator, I think, that Kira's been working with, she seems super cool and open-minded and all these things. And Kira's like, I think I could like her. That's in episode 1. Now we're in episode 2. And she was like, oh, can we put a hospital on this one moon? Because if our troops get injured or whatever, we just want a hospital nearby that could help them. And they're like, yeah, of course. Like, of course, build a hospital. So they build a hospital, and then somehow news comes to Kira, which I don't even remember how. But now she's like, wait, why do they have like missiles and all these military things at the hospital? So she talks to the senator and she's like, oh, I don't like that you have missiles and weapons and stuff like that. It's very close to Bajor. I'm not feeling that. Why does the hospital need all that? And why are there warbirds constantly coming to deliver medical supplies? Like, all this seems super sus. And the senator's just like, well, we just need to protect ourselves. We're just trying to protect ourselves. And then Kira starts getting this, like, the heebie-jeebies about the idea that maybe after the Dominion War is over, because we're all assuming the Dominion's going to lose. Sorry. We're all assuming the Dominion's going to lose. So Kira's thinking, okay, when the Dominion loses, the Romulans are going to become the new Cardassians. Like, they're going to not give up this moon. And now that the hospital is really a military base, they're going to have missiles aimed at Bajor. And then they're just going to go right into this whole oppression cycle again. So Kira gets the heebie-jeebies about this. And she's like, no, absolutely not. I fought too hard and too long. We're not doing this. So she's like, Senator, remove all that stuff off the moon immediately. And the senator's like, no, and you can't make me. And remember, Kira is representing Bajor, not the Federation. So Admiral something, I don't remember this guy's name. He's representing the Federation and he's trying to like mediate. But pretty much he's just like, let the Romulans do what they want. And Kira's like, this is why we need Cisco. Because he actually cares about our home world. So then Kira makes this whole blockade and is like, if those Romulan warbirds cross this blockade, it is war. Like, we will fight you. And Admiral, whatever his name is like, this is so unproductive. We have a literal war going on with the Dominion. Is this really what you want to do? And Kira's like, it's not what I want to do. It's what I'm going to do. We're not having the Romulans take over Bajor. It's not happening. So you decide, Senator, what you want. You know, and it's just like, I mean, it's such a great game of chicken. And Odo's right by her side. And yeah, Admiral something. I don't remember. Oh, Ross. Okay, Admiral Ross. Okay, apparently that's his name. I literally don't remember. But he, so she calls the senator's bluff, basically. And the senator's like, fine, we'll remove the missiles and we'll make it a real hospital. And then all is well. So that's probably the B plot, because it's like the stakes are kind of high, but not really, because in the end it all works out. So didn't really matter. But it was just fun to see Kira be a boss, because it's always fun to see Kira be a boss. And I also wonder what you guys think about the Kira and Odo situation. I honestly thought, and I said this for the season 6 review when they got together, I thought they were never going to get together. I thought he was just going to pine away for her for his whole life, for the whole 7 seasons. And she was just going to be like, I think we should be friends. That's what I thought. I thought she was going to friend zone him forever. But they actually got together. So I was wondering, what is this going to look like? Because I feel like Deep Space Nine does not do the best job of showing true chemistry between characters. Even when they're dating, they kind of seem like they're pretending to like each other, like they're acting. And that's not what we want. We want it to look so natural and real. So I wasn't sure what they were going to do with this. And then they just went for it. It was just like, yeah, they're a couple, they're a thing now. Like, that's what they're doing. And yeah, I'm just curious what you guys thought about that relationship as we see it here in the first episode of season 7. Like, does it feel like an old married couple? Does it feel like really passionate? Does it feel really plastic? I'm curious about your thoughts. Okay, I'm going to check the chat, and then we will go on to the next episode on the list. So that was just episode 1 of 10. But before I do, I don't even know if these are still available, but if they are still available, there are many channel memberships. So if you are not yet a member of this channel, jump into the chat and become a member. If you're watching on your phone, or if you're watching on your TV, you can switch to the app on your phone and go ahead and become a member. You can jump on your computer, go ahead and become a member. All thanks to PS2 Chipper. Okay. Which I love this. I live up to the ideals of Starfleet, not the reality. I love that. That is one central Romulan commander. Oh yeah, this is a really good one. Kira gets back in touch with her pilot episode persona of facing down a greater force, which is nice. Yeah, I love seeing Kira just be such a boss. I like how they keep Sisko second guessing his identity as Benny Russell. Yeah, and I'm also not totally sure if Sisko is if Benny Russell created Deep Space Nine and by extension all of Trek, in world, in universe, like a Inception type of thing, or if there was some kind of maybe not like a wormhole, but some kind of time loop, time link thing between Sisko and Benny Russell. Maybe that's his ancestor from several hundred years ago. And there's some kind of link where they can see into each other's minds. Do you remember the episode from TNG called Parallels, where Worf was jumping between different realities and he was just kind of jumping between Worf brains on all these different ships? I wonder if something like that, I don't know. Super interesting idea. Super interesting. The real orb of the emissary is the baseball . Yes. So for those of you who are members of the channel, there are some new emojis you can use in the chat. So you can use colon. Colon meaning that one, the colon, the dot. You have to do that first or else it won't work. But you could do Borg colon, which is a favorite. Colon, another favorite. Barrel colon, which is the bane of Worf's existence. Then we have a Moopsie. We have some Chronotons, which are just kind of glowy and cute, which I don't even know what they're going to look like in the chat. Maybe they're going to be too small to see. We have Latinum, which is fun. And then we have a baseball. So if you're a member, definitely check out some of the new ones. This episode, AF Kaplan says, this episode reminded me of why Kira is my favorite female DS9 character. Ooh, I like that. Who's your favorite male character on DS9? Sela says, Sisko opens the box. Okay, the other thing, what did you guys think about Sisko's mom being a prophet? Or, okay. A prophet inhabited the woman who birthed Sisko, who married Grandpa Joe and birthed Sisko. But then as soon as Sisko was born, she left this woman's body. So then the woman comes back to her senses and is like, why did I marry this man? I don't even know him, or I don't even love him, or whatever. And then divorces him and leaves. And thankfully, Grandpa Joe met another person immediately and got married. So Sisko had no idea the woman that he was raised by wasn't his birth mother. What do you guys think about that? Is that it? What do you think about that twist? Also, the fact that his prophet mother is the same age as him, or maybe even younger. I was like, why do they do this? Granted, it's a prophet. It could be anybody's age, and they want to keep the actresses the same, I'm guessing. But I was just kind of like, this is weird. He's talking to somebody who's maybe younger than him, and he's like, Mom. I was like, yes, she's your mother, but you don't really have that bond with her because you just found out that a prophet is your mom. I don't know. Something about that just seemed off. I can't even put my finger on it. But I want to hear your thoughts. Okay. I can't with Benny Russell. So flipping sad. First, his stories are not good enough. And then he has a psychotic break. Messed up, dude. I know, but at least we get to see him again. It's sad that his story is sad, but I just was so happy to see Benny Russell again. Yeah, prejudice and hate are highly destructive. Benny Russell is a tragic example. So true. Yeah, Kira's great. Nana Visitor is just beautiful. I love the grin she gives Odo when she wins the standoff. I also just love Kira and Odo together in general. The way their story arc ends rips my heart out, though. But did you see it coming, though? Because people are always saying in the chat, the O'Briens must suffer, or O'Brien must suffer because so many terrible things happen to him. But I also kind of feel like Kira must suffer, at least when it comes to love, because she is just not lucky in love. She is lucky to be loved by so many people, really deeply, truly loved and valued and appreciated. The way people love Kira is the opposite of the way people quote unquote love Dax. The way people just lust after Dax. People truly love Kira, like for who she is and how she is and what she believes and her values, and more than just the fact that she's a pretty package. People seem to just fall in love with how beautiful Dax is and then just lose their freaking minds. So despite that, she never ends up happy, it seems like, with someone she loves. Yeah, she knocks on the door at the vet. Oops. Hold on. True, sad. Hello, Mr. Captain. The end of the last episode. Okay, so Ezri shows up at the end of the last episode. Okay. So Nadia says, I thought it was crap that Odo wanted to join the Great Link permanently. He could have just gone temporarily, although who knows if they could have stayed, right? Yeah, I think he technically, like, he didn't have to stay. He could have just gone to the planet and then just merged with them. And just by merging that one time, the cure in his bloodstream would have cured everybody else. Like, it would have spread. So even if he only passed it to one changeling in the whole pond and the whole Great Link, he could have turned back into a solid, got back on the shuttle, and the cure would have still spread to whoever was still alive in the puddles. But I think it was more the fact that he really wanted to join the Great Link ever since he learned about the Great Link. So it was more like, I've wanted to go back, and I know when I go back, it's going to be permanent, because the female changeling was very persuasive, and I was pretty sure it was going to be permanent. And now he has a reason to go back, which is to cure and save his people. So it's kind of like, maybe now's the time. I wonder if they would have done that if there was a season 8. Well, I guess they couldn't have, because Odo would have still had to been on the show. But I just wonder if that was necessary for his character development. But at some point, he was going to go back. What does this mean? The Romulans perfected salami tactics. What does that mean? Yeah, stayed together as Kira ages. You know what? I feel like Odo could have learned to age, because he learned to look more human when we saw him 200 years in the future from in that colony. So he could have learned to have wrinkles and stuff and mimic aging, I'm sure, if that was important to him. Mr. Captain. So this is Mr. Captain speaking as the Romulan senator. The hospital was just holding bombs for a friend. We weren't going to use that against you, Bajor. Of course not. Okay, next Valentine's Day, we need to do a whole show about Star Trek romances. Yeah, I did one before, but just for TNG. So we can definitely expand to some of the other shows. I thought Worf and Jadzia made a good couple. You know, I wonder about that. I mean, I agree with you. They were pretty cute. But I wonder about Jadzia's motives. Like, was that Jadzia because she loves Klingons, or was that Curzon because he loves Klingons? You know? But yeah, they were pretty cute. And then when at the end of season 7, when they had all the Ezri and Worf stuff, I was really irritated, because I was like, this is what, like, episode 19, 20, like, this is the end of the season, and now there's all this tension between them. Should they not? I still want you. I was just like, no, why didn't we already didn't we establish all of the emotional fallout of having a new Dax on board in like episode 3 or 4? I feel like in real life, yes, it would have taken a long time. In Trek life, it should not have taken the entire season for this. Like, they should have dealt with it episodes and episodes ago, and now have moved on. So I'm not really sure what that choice was, to be like, let's force Worf and Ezri together to talk about their feelings, like 20 episodes into the season. But I do think Worf and Jadzia were pretty cute. Quark's brief marriage to a Klingon woman was a blast. An episode about Troy and Riker. Were they just friends during TNG or friends with benefits? We are of two minds. That is 100% true. We are of two minds about that. Yeah, I also like the Bell Riots episode. Going back to Worf and Jadzia, the wedding episode is one of my favorites. It is pretty sweet. I also like in this wedding episode, which is not in season 7, obviously, because there's no more Jadzia. But I also like in that episode how she stands up to the mother-in-law. And she's just like, you will treat me with respect like a Klingon woman. And how Sisko is just like, you're not Klingon. You're not Curzon. You didn't earn any of that. You are Jadzia. Pick a lane. And for Jadzia to be like, oh yeah, sometimes I think I'm Curzon. So I like that. Oh, he is the dreamer and the dream. Yes. I love seeing the baseballs in the chat. There were episodes that implied that Troy and Riker were just friends because Troy was uncomfortable getting involved. It was Riker who was like, oh, we should just be friends. And then whenever Troy was with somebody else, he was like all jealous. So once again, pick a lane. Okay. Cisco is half prophet. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I don't know if Cisco's a prophet. Okay, I need to get to the next episode. I don't know if just because Cisco's mom was inhabited by a prophet, I don't think that makes Cisco a prophet. It's just that the prophet pulled the strings to make sure that Cisco was born. But they keep saying Cisco is of Bajor, so I don't know. I don't know. Okay, there's so many things in the chat. I'm going to read the rest, but I also need to go to the next episode. Otherwise, we're not going to get through this list of 10. It's already been 20 minutes on episode 1. So moving on to the second episode on the list. Season 7, episode 6, Treachery, Faith, and the Great River. Odo partners with a Weyoun clone who vows to give up Dominion secrets in exchange for protection. This plan goes horribly wrong before he can share anything of value. Back on Deep Space Nine, Nog has negotiated literally everything on the station, including Cisco's desk, in order to get Chief O'Brien a piece of equipment he desperately needs. Okay, so I think, again, I don't remember which one's the A plot and the B plot, and maybe they're just evenly split in half, but let's call the A plot the Odo Weyoun situation. I did think that was interesting. I thought it was interesting having a Weyoun clone who's like defecting from the rest of the Dominion situation, not because he doesn't still believe in the I was going to say the prophets, the changelings, the founders, not because he doesn't believe in the founders, but because he doesn't believe in the war and he's not a fan of Cardassia, et cetera, et cetera. So he slips away and joins with Odo. And he's like, I serve the founders, not Cardassia, the founders. And this war is just seeming like real nonsense. So I'm just going to follow you. What do you think we should do? I will tell you all of the secrets. I will tell you everything that's going on because this war needs to end. And then when they were on the view screen, it was like Odo and Weyoun clone. And then on the screen, it was, I think, Damar and Weyoun clone. And this is like the new Weyoun. And they're like, we usually don't thaw one out until the last one's died or whatever. And the new Weyoun clone is like, you know what you need to do, or else we're going to fire on this ship and, destroy the founder. So the old Weyoun clone bites some kind of cyanide pill hiding in his tooth, like an old spy type thing. And then Odo's like, oh no, I actually cared about that clone. So that was kind of, it was interesting. It was interesting that they have a fail safe. It was interesting that there's a policy and protocol for how they need to behave. That was interesting. But I think the crowning jewel of this episode was really Nog. Nog being this like master negotiator. I really enjoyed that. I love seeing him, O'Brien needed this some part of the ship that Cisco wanted him to get. And he was like, it's going to take 6 weeks. And Cisco was like, I want it in 3 days, because apparently captains can just say ridiculous things like that and people get it done. And so Nog was like, no problem. We can make it work, with his natural enthusiasm. And he just starts negotiating with like everyone in the quadrant. And eventually not only does he get that piece, but he gets everybody everything they want. And it's so cool to watch. And the whole time O'Brien is freaking out. He's like, Nog, you need to stop. Oh my gosh, this has gone wrong. Why did you do this? How is that connected to this? He's freaking out. And Nog is just like, you just need to trust the Great River of Prophets, or whatever he called it. I don't remember what this thing was called, but it was some kind of great river. It was this idea that if you help people get what they want, like the riches will come back to you. And it's some additional piece of the Ferengi faith. And I'm just here for it. I love the way Deep Space Nine treats religion with respect. It doesn't mean everyone religious is good or bad or smart or stupid or naive or anything. They're just regular people who have a faith. And as a faith-based person myself, I so appreciate seeing that reflected in television, because it's never reflected that way. Unless it's religious television, then it's like religious people are the best. If it's not religious television, then it's like religious people are all really stupid and, backwards and all these things. But there's no humanizing of either side. And I really appreciate that Deep Space Nine is spectacular at that. They're just like, this is these people's religion and this is how they feel about it. Moving on. And there are some characters who are like, well, I think that's stupid. Well, I think mine's not stupid. And I just love that. It just feels like a conversation as opposed to a judgment. And I personally appreciate that. So that was what I really loved about this episode. I'm going to check the chat really quick, and then we'll go to the next episode where it gets a little more. Oh, hold on a second. Let me scoot up. I'm going out of order. Okay. Then I'll go into the next episode. Yep. So let me just check. Let me know your thoughts on this episode in the chat while I'm just checking through. There are several Sisko, Quark, Garrick, O'Briens that I can't choose. Oh, several of the that question was who's your favorite male character? And so you named like half the males on the show. Have we mentioned Take Me Out to the Holosuite yet? No, we have not. Was that season 7? Was that season 7? Probably, huh? No, we have not. Odo needed to find himself. The time he needed to spend in the Great Link is indefinite. That's what I'm saying about Odo joining the Link, but it's so sad because he and Kira were soulmates. I know the changelings were programmed to want to be in the Link, but still. Oh, okay. Salami tactics is when an antagonist takes what they want one tiny slice at a time. I have never heard that before. Learn something new every day. Okay, we've got some more people who are not fans of Ezri. There's so much to say. Okay, yes, I also love Jeffrey Combs. The B plot was a MASH episode. That's so funny. Okay, I am looking at everybody's, but I want to get to the next thing on the list, so I'm skimming. Okay, now we have the MASH song stuck in our heads. I love this episode. The desk, the wine. Miles could have suffered again. Yes, that's true. Miles could have suffered, but he did not. The desk part was the best, where O'Brien is like, all right, I need to go face the music. And he opens the doors to Sisko's office, and the desk is there, and Sisko's sitting there, and Nog is like polishing it. And Sisko's like, wow, look at this. Nog's polishing my desk. And Nog's like, oh, it just looked like it needed a little touch up. And O'Brien's like, what the heck? And then he's like, what's Martok going to do when he finds out that you've traded all of his blood wine? And Martok comes in and he's like, oh my gosh, O'Brien, thanks for this blood wine. That's so much better than what my wife sent me. It's just like, he was worried. Not only was he worried for nothing, but everything Nog did just paid off so big. And I love that. They call it the value stream. That's actually a really, the great material continuum. Okay, that's not what I had in my mind. The value stream, though, makes more sense. Yeah, I really like the religious treatment in DS9, but I think I liked it most when Kai Wynn was taken out. Yeah, okay, so so Sela says, it's so funny considering Gene Roddenberry was a humanist and an atheist. Well, the thing is, Gene Roddenberry stopped running the show when he passed away in 1991. And so that was, when was that? Season 3, maybe, of TNG. So he was no longer around to say what can and cannot. And also, I will say that kind of makes sense, because the religious episodes that we saw in season 1 of TNG were terrible. Like, they were exactly what I just said. They were exactly, these religious people are really stupid. They're backwards. They need to be fixed. They need to be solved. They need to be educated, whatever. So, like, if he were still alive, it probably would have been more of that. But since the direction was being led by somebody else, we got to really flesh out those ideas. Also, one of Gene Roddenberry's things was he wanted everybody to be at peace, at least inside the Federation. They could be at war with other people, but he wanted everybody on the ship to be buddies, to be best friends. And the only times they could have conflict is if there was some kind of brain virus or some kind of parasite or some kind of alien and affecting them and changing their behaviors. But in their right minds, everybody had to be friends. And that's really unrealistic for any group of people. So that was another thing that shifted after his passing, is that the crew could have conflict. And then it just made characters more fleshed out. It made things more realistic. And for sure, like, imagine, so none of Deep Space Nine would have happened if Gene was running the show, because the whole thing's about war. The whole thing's about discord. The whole thing's about shifting loyalties. I mean, Odo, he hates everybody except for Kira. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much conflict. Garrick, like, there's so much conflict, but I think they do it beautifully in DS9, because just think of like Garrick and Bashir, or Odo and Garrick. Like, or Quark and Odo. There's like frenemies, a lot of frenemies going on. So even when there's conflict, they find a way to make it, kind of more utopic, like the original vision, but also something that we can watch and relate to. Okay, that was such a tangent. Okay, it was season 4 of TNG.
Kai Wynn needed to go. She was brilliantly portrayed by Louise Fletcher. Yeah, Kai Wynn. We're gonna talk about Kai Wynn. Does Miles suffer as much on Deep Space Nine as he does in TNG? Does Miles suffer in TNG? I think he only has the one episode where he's a little conflicted when he meets that military guy. But yes, to answer your question, he suffers 1,000 times more in Deep Space Nine all the time, like so painfully. He has some of the best episodes, but they break your heart and they make you want to cry. DS9 works so well because it was a tug of war between Ira and Berman. Oh, okay. Well, maybe that explains it. Yeah, no conflict is totally unrealistic in writing drama, in writing anything. He broke his arm kayaking. Wait, who broke his arm? Oh, Colmini did? Or did O'Brien? Oh, he did do that. Yeah, no, it's way worse because that's like a broken arm. What happens to him in DS9 is like a broken mind, a broken spirit, like all the things. Yeah. Way of the Warrior is one of the best two-parters of all Trek. It's so intense. Okay, let's go to the next episode on the list.
Season 7, Episode 21, When It Rains. Dukat sneaks a peek at the forbidden book and is blinded by the Pah-wraiths. Kai Wynn kicks him out, telling him that he will have to learn humility as a beggar in the streets, and he can return when his sight returns. Meanwhile, Gowron shows up and starts interfering with General Martok's well-laid plans in the war effort. Also, it turns out that Odo was patient zero for the changeling disease, thanks to Section 31.
So at some point during season 7, and I missed when it happened, but I noticed during this review, they started having way more than an A plot and a B plot. Each episode started having like 3 or 4 storylines going on all at the same time, which I actually appreciate. I think they did it very well. And I think it made each episode feel more full. The other thing is they had that new character of Ezri Dax. And so I do feel like season 7 became the Ezri show where every single episode had to have a big storyline about Ezri. So even if it was like originally an A and B, there'd be like a C thrown in just to be like, here's her backstory, or here's how she feels about Worf, or here's how she feels about Bashir, or here's how she feels about being on the ship, or whatever. There was like this other thing that just kept going. But this episode had so many things going on. I think my favorite thing about this episode is the Kai Wynn Dukat stuff that just felt so satisfying. Hold on, I'm gonna scroll down a little bit to my summary. Okay, so that part I loved. Basically, and we're gonna talk more about the Kai Wynn Dukat stuff, but in this part when he's reading the book and he's reading it sneakily behind Kai Wynn's back, he had tried to read it before. He tried to read it earlier that day. He was like, come on, let me see, give me a peek. And she was like, this is for my eyes only. This is for my eyes only. You can't see it. And she closes the book and holds it close to herself. And she's like, get out of here. And so he's like, okay, fine. Then he sneaks back in the middle of the night and he's reading the book secretly. And that's when the Pah-wraiths zap him and blind him. And so he's like, I can't see. And he's knocking stuff off the desk. And so Kai Wynn comes out and she's like, what's wrong? And he's like, I'm blind. And she's like, well, didn't I say it was for my eyes only? Now she could have elaborated and said, seriously, like you literally cannot read this book or it'll blind you. I don't know if she knew that though. But I kind of like that she did it. She was just like, it's for my eyes only. And then when he took the bait, then he blinded himself basically by reading something he wasn't supposed to read. And then he tried to talk to her to be like, it wasn't my fault. I just wanted to know what the Pah-wraiths had to say. And she was like, no, you wanted to summon them without me. You were trying to find a way to cut me out of the deal. And now look at how that's worked out for you. And then she's just like, the next day she's like, guards, take him away. Just go put him out on the street corner. And he's like, you can't leave me like that. I'm blind. And she was like, yeah, I think being a beggar will teach you some humility. And you're going to get to know the generosity of the Bajoran people. Goodbye. And I just feel like for somebody like Dukat, whose whole life is about respect and prestige and honor and people just looking up to him and thinking he's amazing, I feel like there was like no better punishment than making him a beggar on the streets of Bajor of all places. So he's got to depend on the kindness of the people that he wants to control and enslave. I just loved it. I was here for it. I stood up and applauded. That was one of those times where I was like, yes, take that, Dukat. Of course, he does get his sight back because reasons. We need him for more storylines, but not in this episode. So that was one of the things. The other thing that happened in this episode was Gowron shows up. He gives Martok this big medal, and then he's like, congratulations. Now I'm in charge of the war efforts. And Martok's like, wait, what? Did I not do a good job or something? And he's like, no, of course you did a great job. You were amazing. You did a great job. So he's like, so what's going on? Well, Worf figures it out faster than Martok, apparently, because somehow this kind of stuff was not obvious to him. But basically Worf is like, or maybe Martok figured it out. He just kept his mouth closed. Basically, Gowron is feeling jealous because Martok is getting so much attention as this war hero. And Gowron is afraid that Martok will come after him and try to become the leader of the High Council or something like that. So he comes to Deep Space Nine. He takes over the fleet and he starts planning all these terrible strategies, like terrible missions that he knows will fail. And he puts Martok in charge of them. So that way, instead of having victory after victory after victory, which is what Martok had, now he starts having failure after failure after failure. And he wants to embarrass and humiliate Martok and like bring his stats down and also break his spirit and also remind everybody that, and tell everybody the reason why this battle was lost was because Martok sucks. Not because the strategy was terrible and stupid and frivolous, but because Martok sucks. So this was his whole big plan. It doesn't work out. Later on, Worf challenges him to a duel and stabs him to death. And then Worf becomes High Council because that's how you do it. If you kill the current person, then you get to be the new person. And then as soon as they put the big coat thing on him, he's like, I don't want to be in charge. It should be Martok, and puts it on Martok. And then Martok's back in charge of the war effort and saving the day. So yay, Worf. He's now back in the Klingon Empire and super high up indeed. But that was the second thing that happened in this episode that was interesting. That's kind of where it started. And then hearing that Odo was patient zero, that the changeling disease came from him, that was a shock. I didn't see that coming. That was a surprise. Okay, I'm going to check the chat really quick, and then we'll go to the next episode on the list. By the way, I don't know if those memberships are still available in the chat, but if you want to become a channel member, here's your time. And there's some new super cute emojis. I love this one. I have a lot of comments on Ducat and Win, but we don't have an after hours stream. Oh, hold on. Higher. Yeah, so many things happened to O'Brien. His wife almost doesn't marry him. He got possessed by evil aliens. Yeah, he didn't have a great TNG either. I guess that's true, but it doesn't seem as tortured. Like, if I think of the character who was tortured in TNG, I would think Counselor Troy. I wouldn't think O'Brien. But if I think the character who's tortured in DS9, I would think O'Brien. But that's fair. Okay, can we talk about the Bajoran Ducat and the fact that he and Win hooked up? I mean, ew. Ducat tasted the forbidden fruit. Win and Ducat, a match made in the lowest circle of hell. Seeing the two of them together on screen made my skin crawl. I think we're going to see more of them later in another episode I'm going to talk about. She doesn't even notice his voice. I think it's everything, though, Randall. I think it's the whole picture has changed. It didn't even occur to her that he would surgically alter himself to look Bajoran to try, you know what I mean? And plus, there were she was getting visions from the Pa race, but she thought it was the prophets, and they were pointing to him being the answer. So I think there's a lot of reasons why she didn't recognize his voice. And I don't think they were ever so tight that she heard his voice constantly. Like if it was Kira would have recognized his voice because he's always up in Kira's business. Yes. Okay, so many of these things we're going to talk about. Yeah, so many of these things we're going to talk about. Troy and Picard. Oh yeah, Picard did have some literal torture moments in TNG. Remind me of that, Nadia, to talk about Win and Ducat for Valentine's Day. You don't notice these things when love is in the air. Exactly, Gavin. Okay, let's go to the next episode on the list.
Season 7, Episode 8, The Siege of AR-558. Cisco and his team are sent to support Federation troops holding a vital communications array against a brutal and continuous Jem'Hadar assault. Also, this location happens to be full of invisible mines that appear at random and blow people up. At first, Nog views these exhausted troops as heroes and the mission as noble, until he is gravely injured and loses his leg.
This episode was so good and dark and scary and terrifying. So when it starts, Cisco and team are going to support these Federation troops who basically captured this Dominion communications array. So they captured it somehow. The Jem'Hadar are trying to get it back, and they're defending it. And I forget what it was. Remind me in the chat or in the comments. But they're supposed to be relieved after some amount of time, like 3 months or something. At some amount of time, they're supposed to be relieved, and there's a new group that's supposed to come in. But for whatever reasons, war, they haven't sent any people to relieve them. So they've been here for, instead of, let's say, 6 weeks or however long they're supposed to be there, they've been there for like 9 months or something like that. Some ridiculous amount of time that they've been on the front lines because the Jem'Hadar keep attacking, and they attack like every night. And there are these invisible mines, like I said in the video. I forget what they called them, but they're like phased mines or something like that. So the mines are there, but they're out of phase, and then randomly they pop back into phase. And if you happen to be standing where one pops out, it blows you to pieces. That is the craziest idea I've ever heard. I don't know why they don't use this technology in other episodes because it is so scary and like such an interesting idea. And I feel like it's unbeatable. Obviously they beat it in this episode, but if people just walked into a place and then all of a sudden mines appear, that'd be terrifying. That would be terrifying. So this episode's pretty dark. One of the soldiers has a bunch of what is that drug called that the Jem'Hadar take? The something white. What is that called? Ketracel. The Ketracel white. So the Jem'Hadar have those Ketracel white tubes that they like put in their tanks or whatever to fill back up. And so this soldier has a bunch of Ketracel white tubes as a necklace. So each one represents one of the Jem'Hadar soldiers that he's taken out. And Nog is looking, he's just like, wow, that guy's so cool. And I'm looking and I'm like, wow, that guy is so disturbed. He has been here too long. They have all been here too long. And you can see how they're all fraying at the edges. This guy has just become combat obsessed. He's just like stabbing, shooting. Like it's just so, he's had to do it for so long to stay alive. Now it's just like consumed him. I can't imagine him doing anything else. The other guy, he's just like, he's like holding a shaky gun and he's snapping at everybody. He's short-tempered. He's irritable, understandable. So you just see like all these different levels of trauma from these soldiers being on the front line for so long. And when Sisko comes to try to help them with whatever he tried to help them with, whoever their commanding officer was, she was like, did you bring more troops? Did you bring something that's actually helpful? And he's like, well, no, Starfleet's going to send people whenever, but we just came to fortify or help with the array. I don't even remember why Sisko came. But they ended up picking up arms because more people got blasted by the invisible mines. And anyways, they sent Nog on one of these missions because of his Ferengi ears. He has exceptional hearing. So they sent him to listen to the troops' movements to find out how many Jem'Hadar soldiers were in the next cave or whatever, because the Jem'Hadar were sending holographic soldiers to try to trick the Federation into shooting so that they can figure out how many Federation soldiers they have, right? So it's all this like military craft stuff. And anyways, so Nog goes, and then Nog gets shot, and then Nog does like the crazy scream, like the crazy Ferengi scream, which I just think is so funny. And I did laugh, even though this is like such a serious moment when they put it in, and he was like, ah! He started doing that high-pitched scream. I was like, oh my gosh. And then, so I was like, I can't believe, like, I just love the continuity of that he did the Ferengi scream. Anyways, while they're having this big laser battle, when the Jem'Hadar finally show up, we see poor Nog and we see Quark like dabbing his forehead and, trying to keep him comfortable until the whole battle is done and Bashir can come and help him. And then in the end, Bashir's like, yeah, he's going to lose his leg. And it's just like a little stump. And I was like, like, remember, Nog is like my favorite character and he lost a leg. And I couldn't believe it because it's Star Trek. You could literally, hello, Picard, your heart could stop and they just put a new one in. Easy peasy. So I was just like, did he really lose a whole limb? Like it's gone for real? Are they going to replace it? And I didn't know. I didn't know if they were going to replace it, if he was going to use crutches for the rest of the show. Like I didn't know which direction they were going to go in because of course we have prosthetics now. Why wouldn't they have even better prosthetics in the future? But maybe they can't do it or they decide not to do it. Or maybe they're stuck on this rock for the next episode, which thankfully they weren't. But wow, this was a good one. This was so good. It was really dark. It was really intense. It was really good. Okay, I'm going to check the chat and then we'll go to the next episode on the list. Yeah, so by crazy scream, I mean like the Ferengi scream. There's a certain way the Ferengi scream when they're injured, and Nog did the exact, or not when they're injured. There's a certain way the Ferengi scream whenever they scream, like whenever they're afraid, and that was the exact scream that he did. So it was like, it's very specific to the Ferengi. It wasn't just like a regular like, ah, it wasn't like that. It was like it was that high-pitched wail that kind of, yeah. Nadia says, you would think that the Ferengi had someone invent a way to regenerate their limbs just for the potential profit. Seriously. Windgrace, I think, was the one who said, there's got to be other Ferengi, not just like profit obsessed ones, because they have spaceships, they have, colonies, they have all these things. So they have to have Ferengi scientists, Ferengi doctors, Ferengi, all these other things. Everybody can't be just hungry for profit. But I don't know how that works with, with the whole, what they're trying to teach us about them. So I don't know. Oh my gosh. Catracel white hot sauce is Beckett Mariner's favorite. That's so bizarre. That sounds accurate. I would have missed that Easter egg because I hadn't seen the show when I watched Lower Decks. Oh, no way. One of those guys is also in Clear and Present Danger. That explains it. I love how Nog was so useful in this episode up until his injury. It was so heartbreaking. The Siege. This is a heavy episode, but Nog and Quark were great in this. Quark was actually super annoying. And then he was really sweet with Nog in the end. And the reason why he was annoyed is because he was terrified. And when he's terrified, he just gets more and more annoying. And he was also kind of like helicopter parenting, helicopter uncling around Nog. And it was just like not the time or place. So all that was annoying, but he's not a soldier. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do in this situation. But in the end, when he was just really caring for Nog, I thought that was really sweet. And you could see that he really loves Nog. Okay. This is the episode that defined Nog. I like that. Okay. We saw a Ferengi doctor in that TNG episode with Beverly and the Sun, the Ferengi killer in The Magnificent Ferengi. Yeah, we saw the Ferengi doctor, Dr. Rega, in the episode, okay. The name was, I thought the name was going to come to me, but it didn't. Yes, it was a Ferengi scientist who had created that heat shield so that you could fly your ship into the corona of a star and not explode, which was super cool. But remember in that episode, he was like criticized and ridiculed by all other Ferengi because he cared about science instead of profit. So silly. Yeah, and I think it makes sense that they would have scientists and stuff who could still be motivated by profit. Having music play, yes. Having music play as they waited for the Jim Hadar pushes the tension up. Yes, that was so emotional. Like how that kind of suspicions. Thank you. That was not gonna come to my brain. Yeah, but having the music play while Nog is just like sitting there and everyone's listening and Bashir's just like, I thought it'd be better for the mood. I don't know, something about that song, which was so not fitting with what's going on right now, made the episode even cooler. Yes, 100%. One of the best actors on the show, I think. Even if they have the technology to regrow the leg, he's at the mercy of the VA. That's true. That's true. Yeah, and they didn't regrow the leg, right? They gave him a prosthetic or an artificial leg, right? I don't think they regrew it. But you're right. Why didn't they regrow it? Surely they have this technology in Star Trek. Yes, Discovery is not about discovery, but it's a means to an end for profit. Well, okay, so Nadia says, I have to say that I hate the episode where Nog is suffering from PTSD and moves into the holosuite. Well, funny that you mention it, because that is the next episode on the list.
Season 7, Episode 10, It's Only a Paper Moon. Traumatized by the loss of his leg, Nog retreats into the holosuite and immerses himself in Vic Fontaine's Las Vegas program. Vic becomes a mentor, a friend, and an unofficial counselor. Nog rediscovers his passion for profit as they make plans to expand the casino. And that's when Vic decides it's time for him to go back to his real life.
So I totally see why Nadia would say, I don't love this episode. I totally see that because as an episode, it's not it's a bottle show, right? There's no space battles or anything going on here. This is just about Nog and his recovery. And there's not a lot of exciting things. And that's probably not why Nadia doesn't like it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm guessing it's because it's really sad. Like it's a really sad episode. You just see Nog just like struggling and just not being able to connect with friends, not being able to connect with family. Everyone who tries to reach out, he's like, get out of my face. I mean, he actually has a fist fight with Jake, but it's not really a fight. He just hauls off on him in the middle of the freaking holosuite. And you're like, what the heck? And he's just not dealing well at all. He's just not dealing well. And Vic Fontaine is like, you know what, kid, if you want to hang out here, you can hang out here. I'm fine with that. And Esri, since she is technically the counselor, is like, no, I don't think that's good. I think you should have counseling sessions with me or, some other professional not a lounge singer in a holosuite. It should be a real professional. And Nog was like, well, you explained to me that I could have therapy in a place of my choosing, and this is the place of my choosing. So if you want to talk to me, you can come talk to me here. What I love about this is that Vic was like his safe space. This is so out of his world that he wasn't constantly confronted with the life he can no longer live. Do you know what I mean? He was able to just take space from where he was, because what's happened is now that he's lost his leg, there's been a turning point. There was the Nog he's always been and where he's going and what he's doing and who he's becoming. Then he lost his leg and that totally changed. And now he's trying to figure out, who am I now? And what Vic did was he gave him a bridge between who you used to be and who you are now. And how does that look? And how does that work? And where am I going to go? Who am I going to be now? So I really love that. And I love the friendship between the two of them. I think it's really sweet. And what happens, surprisingly, because I wasn't really sure where they were going to go with this episode, but what happens surprisingly is that all the Ferengi instincts kick in with Nog. And he said way before, like when he first wanted to apply to Starfleet, he said he did not have the lobes for business, and nor did his father. And they do not need to be in the business because they're just not business people. But apparently that's not true, because he starts hanging out with Vic and he's like, we could expand this. We could open another casino. We could do this. We could do that. And then all of a sudden, all of this like new life comes out of him from his old life, from his life before Starfleet. And I just really love that, because it, instead of being like, this is who you were, this is who you are now, you have to make up a whole new person. It was kind of like, this is who you had become, but let's go all the way back to who you were even before that and tap into that and bring that forward into this new person. I don't know. I thought that was really beautiful. I don't know if that was intentional on the writer's part, but that's what I saw in watching it. And I thought that was really cool. And I love seeing him just come alive. And he's like, yes, you know, this could be profit and this could be profit. And the club makes so much money, but we can make even more. And the way that he did it really honestly. So not like Quark, he wasn't trying to water down the drinks or whatever. He's like, we're going to get in high rollers. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And Vic was like, yeah, let's go. And, you know, it was at one point when they're talking about how they're going to break ground on the new casino and all this stuff, where Ezri comes in and says something of like, oh, it was Rom and Lita were visiting. And Nog was being a perfect host and was like, welcome in, have a seat, you know, and he's having such a good time. And Ezri's talking to Vic and is just like, oh, that's great. You've done such a great job with him. I could totally take it back that I said he shouldn't be here, because look, he's doing so well with his family. He'll be ready to come out of the holodeck now. And Vic was just like, oh, right. And it was like a reality check for him. Like, oh yeah, like Nog doesn't actually live here. Like he's not going to live here forever. I have to let him go. So Vic turns his own program off so that Nog cannot access it. So Nog loses his freaking mind and he starts ripping up the holodeck and trying to, you know, engineer ways for it to come back on. And I think it was O'Brien or somebody who was just like, Vic is not a normal hologram. He can turn his program off if he wants to, and it won't be turned on again until he wants to, which is a lot of autonomy to give to a program. Vic had more autonomy than the EMH on Voyager had. Straight out of the box, he had more autonomy. And the EMH knew he was a hologram. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. So then Nog has to kind of face reality. But what I love about all of this is they're having a conversation, because Vic does turn himself back on to tell Nog why he's made this decision. And he's like, you have to go live your life. You have to go back with your family and with your friends and in the real world. He was like, I never had a life before you came to live with me. And then I was running 24/7. I would just be turned on, sing a song, be turned off. And I love that. Like, that's what I was programmed to love. But because you were here, I got to play cards with the boys. I got to travel. I got to open a new casino. And now I see that there's so much more to life, and you're missing that by staying here. So he was like, this is my sacrifice for you. Like, I loved having a life, but I want you to have one more. I thought that was really beautiful. And then when Nog is kind of comes to terms with that, and he's like, yeah, okay, I do need to reintegrate into the real world at some point. He also makes a deal with, I guess, Quark, and is like, we're going to leave your program running so you can also have a life. So everybody gets to have a life. I don't know. It's just really sweet. I like this episode. I was a big fan. I thought it was very simple. It was really hard to see Nog be so unhappy, but I'm really glad they didn't make him A-okay instantly. I'm glad that they showed the trauma of losing a leg, because if they're going to have a whole freaking series about war stuff, there should be some people with some trauma because of war stuff. There should be people who lose loved ones. There should be people who lose limbs. There should be people who are traumatized from war. Like, they didn't lose anything but their minds because of how crazy the thing that they experienced was, or the things that they experienced. There should be all kinds of things happening if there's an extended conflict, which there is in this show. So I really appreciate that they weren't just like, oh yeah, Nog's okay, like immediately, or Nog's okay halfway through the episode. And even at the very end, when he comes down the steps all slowly and Rom and Lita are like, are you okay? He says, not really, but I think I'm gonna be. Right? I just love that because he could have been like, yep, I'm fine. Had a good talk with Vic and now I'm A-okay. But they didn't go in that direction. They went in the direction of all of this was to help him get to a place where he's ready to start healing, which I thought was really beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm going to check the chat really quickly and then we'll go to the next episode on the list. And I'll go a little bit faster because we got 5 more episodes to go over. But just know if you're writing in the chat or writing in the comments, I read all of them. And feel free to talk amongst yourselves also if I don't get to your comment fast enough. Yeah, so exactly. So this is what Nadia said. I understand why the episode's important, but it just makes me so flipping sad. Also, I just like the music. So remember, I don't know if you remember this, Nadia, but this was back in maybe the first season where that Klingon restaurant owner went around serenading everybody. Beautiful voice. And I was just like, yeah, every time the Klingons start singing, I just fast forward a few seconds. It's not because their voices are not beautiful. It's because I don't want to hear a Klingon song and I don't have to because streaming service, I can just skip. So every time anyone sings, I'm just like, oh, okay, skip. Every Vic Fontaine episode where he's like, hello, I'm like, skip. Not because the song is not good. The songs are amazing. I like his voice. I think the songs are very soothing. But I'm just like, if I don't have to watch the song, I can just go back to like the space battle or whatever I was actually watching. That's really funny. Big Stretchy says, I like this episode because Nog needed to face what happened to him. It's honest. Yeah, I totally agree. It was great to see James Darren. This was the role he was literally born to play. Many military veterans watch Star Trek. I read that these 2 episodes were very realistic in how combat PTSD was shown. That's amazing. Oh, okay. This is another conversation. Yeah, maybe they had actual vets who helped them in writing these 2 particular stories to make them more authentic. The 60s nostalgia with Star Trek atmosphere blended so well in this episode. It gave the theme a strange but realistic feel. Yeah. Nog mentions he had weeks of counseling. Oh yeah, he did mention that. He mentioned he had weeks of counseling, like 6 weeks or something like that. And he was like, honestly, because he told Vic, like, I want to stay here for my therapy. And Vic was like, I'm not a therapist. I'm a lounge singer. And then he was like, yeah, I've already had like 6 weeks of therapy. And he was like, honestly, I'm sick of talking about it. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to do something else. And I think that's why it was so important for him to be out of his normal element and be in this, in Las Vegas, because this is nothing like his real life that he has to keep being reminded about. And he can just kind of just process things without these triggers all around him, Don't you hate it when a karaoke machine turns sentient? That's funny. Exactly. Unlike Worf, who's peachy keen at the end of every one of his episodes. Got stabbed, got tortured, got captured, but now I'm fine. I'm good. That's right. Forget the singing. I only want to hear the sound of pew, pew, pew. What about Riker playing the trombone? Do you fast forward or watch? Well, he only plays it for like 3 seconds, so I could watch. But if he actually starts like if it's a concert, like, yeah, no, I'm not watching that. I would also fast forward. Good question. I did listen to Picard's whole flute thing from Inner Light because I was weeping too hard to push fast forward. So I did listen to that. Okay, now for the next episode on the list.
Season 7, Episode 18, Till Death Do Us Part. Sisko marries Cassidy Yates despite the Prophet's warning that this union will bring great sorrow. Meanwhile, Dukat, disguised as a Bajoran, starts to manipulate Kai Wynn into unknowingly following the Pa Wraiths instead of the Prophets. At the same time, Damar discovers that the Dominion has formed an alliance with the Breen, and Cardassia is getting pushed to the side.
Okay, there were so many things going on in this episode. This is where we first see Dukat's evil plan come into play. So he turns into this, he's surgically altered to look like a Bajoran. His name is Angel, so like angel. And then the Pa Wraiths give Kai Wynn a vision. And so she's like, oh, finally, it's the Prophets. I've gotten the vision that I wanted. And they say, we're going to send you a, okay, I don't know what the word would be, but we're going to send you a guide. We're going to send you a guide to tell you what we really want you to do. And so then Dukat shows up and he's like, I'm your friendly guide. And Kai Wynn is like, this is everything I've ever wanted. Now here's, gosh, the reason why this works so well is because so many reasons. One, Kai Wynn is power hungry AF. Okay. She wants to be in charge of everything. She wants to be in charge of the world. And she is so jealous of Cisco. In the beginning of this episode, she's sitting with Cisco and she's like, I think she said something like, emissary, so interesting that you weren't there to greet me when I got off my shuttle or something like that. I mean, she's doing the most. And she's jealous that Cisco's the emissary. She's jealous that the prophets talk to him. And she mentioned several times, like, I wouldn't know. The prophets never speak to me. I wouldn't know. I haven't had visions myself. You know, like she's jealous. And this is like the perfect in for Dukat, because when she gets back to her quarters, the Paris give her a vision and she figures out halfway through, like, oh, this is the prophets. Yes, this is what I've been waiting for. And then when Anjol comes along and starts interpreting everything for her, she's like, finally, and he starts saying out loud a lot of things that she's been feeling. He's like, don't you think it's weird that Cisco would be the emissary of the prophets when he's not even Bajoran and hasn't even understood all the pain we've been through as a people? I could have backhanded him when he said that. Oh, you caused this pain. Like, oh, this is so, it's like the level of just like hatred I had for this character of Dukat in this episode, I cannot even describe. The way he's just manipulating Kai Wynn and getting into her head and trying to sympathize like he's a freaking Bajoran, like he knows the suffering. He knows the suffering they went through because he helped them. He caused the suffering, but he doesn't know what it feels like to receive that suffering. And it just was so, like, it just made my blood boil. But anyways, he's saying all the things that Kai Wynn is thinking. And she's like, I've also thought that too. Yeah, I was wondering why the prophets picked him. And then when she finally has her vision, she's like, yes, I've made it into the special club. I mean, I am the Kai after all. You would think if they picked anyone, it would be me, of course. Right. So now she's all happy and excited. This was just a great episode. Hold on. There were some more things going on in this episode. Let me scroll down to my notes. That was the part that really stuck with me though, because it just made my blood boil. Let's see. What's this one? Yes, Damar discovers, okay, the Breen. The Breen have formed an alliance with the Dominion, and I was like, what? I didn't see that coming either. I did not know that was going to happen. I couldn't believe it. And then the female changeling starts promising them all this stuff, and Wei Yun is like, founder, didn't you promise us that stuff? Or like, what's going on here? And the female changeling is just like, I promised them the moon. I promised them the world. I promised them the whole freaking Gamma Quadrant if they will join with us and do what we say and put down this Federation threat. And then, you know, we can decide whether or not we keep those agreements later on. And Wei Yun is like, the founder is wise. But yeah, the partnership with the Breen, I did not see coming. And I think you will appreciate this more than most. I love the glow up that the Breen got in Discovery, because I hadn't seen Deep Space Nine before. So when I saw the Breen in Discovery, I was like, oh, these are kind of cool. And then my friend was like, oh yeah, this is from DS9, because a lot of the aliens in Discovery are from DS9. Or, you know, some of the other more obscure aliens from other series, but a lot are from DS9. And so I was like, okay. So then when I saw them here, I was like, wow, they look nothing, except for the fact that they wear helmets. The Breen here and the Breen there look nothing alike. And while I think their uniforms are kind of clunky in DS9, I also think they're interesting. They're different, but there's a major glow up in Discovery. Like, I love how the Breen look. I think their uniforms are so cool. I would totally wear those. That's an aside. Okay. I'll check the chat real quick, and then we'll go to the next episode on the list. Okay, I flippin' love the Dominion Breen alliance. Wei Yun's interactions with the Breen are absolutely fabulous, so hysterical. What do you think? What do you guys think about Damar, who just becomes this like raging alcoholic as time goes on? The more impotent he feels in this whole power struggle, he's just constantly drinking Kanar. Every time you turn around, he's like, more Kanar, more Kanar. He wakes up at 3 a.m. and he's like, Kanar. And Wei Yun is so judgmental, and he's like, really? You haven't even had breakfast yet, but you've had Kanar? You know, I don't know. That whole thing, I love that they put that in, because it shows that Damar is having some issues with his new overlords. I appreciate that, because they could have just not developed his character, but I love that they showed that he's not okay with this and he's not sure how to deal with this. And so he's just doing the only way he can. And then that makes more sense when he rebels later on, because you can see he's been unhappy with this situation for a long time. It's not out of the blue at all. I don't know if they had it planned ahead of time, but that was really nice. DS9's power couple is the power couple Dukat and Kai Wynn. The founders pushing the Cardassians aside for the Breen speaks to their duplicity, and it signals the first cracks in the alliance between Cardassia and the Founders. 100%, because Damar was already not a big fan of Wei Yun and not a big fan of female changeling from the start. But this, when the Breen come in and they're like, okay, Damar, all Cardassian troops will now be taking orders from the Breen. He was just like, what? We're a whole planet. Like, we have say. And they were like, no, you don't, because you serve the Dominion. I think you're absolutely right. That's when he was like, okay, we need to do something about this. This is not working for me. Oh, that's interesting. The rumor is the Breen are not one race, just many outcasts that join the Breen. That's really interesting. In Discovery, they are one race, and they do take off their helmet, like, so you can see their faces, and they do some kind of like their faces are kind of gelatin and they solidify. I don't know. It's very interesting. But actually, both of those are, I'm happy with both of those descriptions or answers. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So Damar's realizing how much his people sold out. And technically, it was Dukat. Dukat was the one who sold out. He sold out and then pieced out. And now Damar's left to pick up the pieces. Well, he didn't piece out. To Nadia's point, when they were fleeing, Damar killed Zial. And so Dukat stayed behind to cradle Zial's dead body. And so when Damar got away and Dukat got arrested, he became the new head of Cardassia. So Dukat didn't actually like leave or abandon anybody. He just was not able to go on. Yeah, I have altered the terms of our deal. Pray I do not alter them again. Seriously, that is what the changelings are all about. And she's like, if you're a solid, you don't really matter anyways. Okay. Now for the next episode on the list.
Season 7, Episode 19, Strange Bedfellows. Kai Wynn discovers she has been getting visions from the Pa Wraiths and not the Prophets. Kira encourages her to step down as Kai because her love of power is what led her down this dark path. She is so incensed by the idea that she should sacrifice her power to please the Prophets that she decides to fully align herself with Dukat and the Pa Wraiths instead.
So when I tell you I was shocked, I was so shocked when she was just like, forget it. I love the Pa Wraiths. I was like, but you're the Kai. You've had this faith in the Prophets, presumably for your whole life, because this is a Bajoran thing. And you're the freaking Kai. You are the spiritual leader of your entire people, your whole home world, all the moons, all the colonies, everybody. Like, you are supposed to be the shining example of faith. And for her to get to this point where she was totally sold out, like she was totally in for following the Prophets. And when she discovered they were the Pa Wraiths, to the Pa Wraiths' credit, they told her they were Pa Wraiths. So I actually appreciate that, because I thought they weren't, and she was just going to be tricked all the way along. I thought the same thing about Dukat too, that he was going to be able to trick her all the way along, but the trick does not last for very long. But anyways, the Pa Wraiths only tricked her enough to get Dukat in the situation, and then they said, follow us, we are the Pa Wraiths. So they totally told on themselves, like, we want you to follow us, and this is who we really are. And when she finds out, she's horrified, and she's like, no, oh my gosh, I don't want to serve the Pa Wraiths, blah, blah. Like, she freaks out. And then when she opens the orb, she's like, oh no, I don't have visions anymore. Like, the Prophets are punishing me for even listening to the Pa Wraiths, for even entertaining them. So she's freaking out. This is all demonstrating her authentic faith in the Prophets, because she's horrified that she's following the Pa Wraiths, right? Then she talks to Kira, because Bareil is dead. So Kira's her new spiritual mentor to like come and ask these questions to, because she's another woman of just really unshakable faith. And Kira's like, yes, and Kai Wynn is really contrite. She's just like, I've gone down a dark path. She doesn't tell her what she's done because it's like too awful. But she's like, I've gone down a dark path and I need to know how to turn around. You're the only person I can turn to. And Kira's like, yes, like, I'm so glad. I've been praying for this moment when you would see the error of your ways and turn from the dark path. And she was like, things are going to be so much better once you step down as Kai. Trust me. And then all of a sudden, Kai Wynn's whole everything changes. She's like, step down as Kai? Why would I ever do that? And Kira's like, because you being the Kai is what led you down this dark place. It was your thirst for power. But if you give up power, then you'll be able to get back on the right path. And she was like, get out. Like, get out of my court. It's like she had nothing to do with that. And then she starts ranting and raving to Dukat, to Anjul. And she's like, I can't believe, well, at first, before she kicks out Kira, she says, but I can do more good for the Prophets from the position of Kai. Like, I have more power, so I can do more good for the Prophets. And Kira's just like, if you really want to serve the prophets, don't like they'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like it's not all on you. The next Kai can take care of it. And so anyways, when she's going off with Angel, she's just like, I've served my whole life for the prophets. I've given them everything. And they have the nerve to pick Cisco instead of me for the emissary. And they don't give me visions. And why do I get visions? And now they have the nerve to not let me see visions through the orbs anymore. So, and now they want me to give up my power as Kai. I can't believe that. Forget it. And forget the prophets too. I follow the Pah-wraiths because they're going to give me true power. And and then Dukat insinuates that Kai Wynn is going to be their emissary. So we're going to have like the good emissary and Cisco and the evil emissary for the Pah-wraiths. And that's going to be Kai Wynn. So all the power and prestige she's ever wanted, she'll finally get. And that's very true. Like Kai Wynn is more power hungry. Like she really just wants to be in charge of things. Dukat is more narcissistic. He's also power hungry, but he wants people to like love and admire him. Kai Wynn doesn't seem to want people to love and admire her. She just wants people to listen to her and respect her and obey her and follow her rules. She just wants the power. She wants control. And Dukat wants love, but he wants to manipulate the love out of people. Anyways, whoever said that before, I think it was A.F. Kaplan or somebody who was like, they were a match made in hell. Like, absolutely. Like, they get each other. So this is why Dukat can speak into her ears so well. Okay. Anyways, I'm going to check the chat real quick, and then we'll go to the next episode on the list. There's so much to talk about. The show builds the supporting or occasional characters. Just when you think Kai Wynn could not get any more toxic, she goes full on dark side evil. Just when you think. Wynn's issue is that she's a fake. She acts religious, but she's only in it for herself. She's the worst kind of quote unquote religious person. I feel, I do wonder that about Kai Wynn. I wonder how much of her faith is genuine, because I mean, she's a Kai, so some of it could be, and how much of it is like, where's the delineation between I want to do what's best, like I want to follow the prophets, and I want to do what's best for Bajor, and I want to do what's best for myself. Now we know she wants to do what's best for herself above all, but I wonder if there is some I want to do what's best for Bajor and I want to follow the prophets in there. Like if there's some mixed in there, or if that was the jumping off point. I am curious about that. Yeah, so PS2 Chipper says, there's too much depth in this episode for me to give a witty comment. Honestly, demons work hard over a long period of time to shake a Christian's faith. Yeah, Dukat and the Pah-wraiths took like 2 episodes to totally crush her, to totally crumble her faith. And they didn't crumble her faith. They just tempted her. And she was like, you know what? You're right. What have the prophets ever done for me? I'm sitting here doing all this work as the Kai. They don't even bother to give me visions. So the Pah-wraiths have already given me 2. That's 2 more visions than the prophets ever gave me. So I'm all in with the Pah-wraiths, which is terrifying because she's the religious leader and now she's following the Pah-wraiths. But she's got to follow them secretly because she knows nobody will follow. I don't know. It's just, I love the layers and the wheels and wheels. I love this choice for the writers because now it's making so many interesting storylines. Yes. So A.F. Kaplan says she uses her people's religion to like satisfy her lust for power, basically, which makes her really toxic. Yes, she totally has been conniving since her first appearance. She totally has been. Do you think they do the Cardassian neck dance in bed? I don't even know what the Cardassian neck dance is. Oh my gosh, you guys are so funny. Kai Wynn is not opposed to doing what's right for Bajor. She's just not going to choose Bajor over herself. Kai Wynn chooses unwisely. Yes, and Dukat was a snake in the garden. See, I don't think Dukat would ever... We're going to talk more about Dukat. Okay, let's go to the next episode on the list.
Season 7, Episode 20, The Changing Face of Evil. The Breen launch a devastating attack on Earth, shifting the war in the Dominion's favor. Kai Wynn's second-in-command discovers that Angel is an imposter and is really Dukat, surgically altered to look Bajoran. At first, Wynn is outraged, but when Solbor tries to stop her from learning how to summon the Pah-wraiths, she stabs him in cold blood. Meanwhile, Damar defects and declares war on the Dominion.
Again, there is so much going on this episode. Like, there's so much going on. I wrote in my notes just for why I picked this episode when I was just kind of like, why is this a good one? I put, OMG, the Breen have attacked Earth. And I put a lot of question marks and exclamation points because Earth was attacked. Earth was attacked. And it wasn't the Borg. I was just like, what the heck? And then I put, Kai Wynn kills her second in command and Ducat's exposed. So like those happen in opposite order. So the second in command comes in and he's like, don't you recognize him? That's Ducat. I didn't know that was going to happen. I thought Ducat was going to trick Kai Wynn to the grave, but this is like 3 episodes into him being Bajoran. This is episode number 3. And the second in command, I think his name is Salbor. He's like, that's Ducat. And Kai Wynn is like, what? Angel? You're Ducat? What? How could that be? Wait, I do recognize your voice. You know, it's like, what's going on? And then Ducat's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's just the worst. And so now it's all clear. Now it's all in the open. And Salbor is like, I'm going to expose you. And also they've been doing all these shady things because they're trying to figure out how to summon the paw race. And they've been sending him to the vault, to the big library to get the scary books to figure out how to unlock the paw race. And so he's already getting really suspicious because he's like, these books are forbidden. They're restricted. The only one who can even check them out is the Kai. They haven't even been looked at in 300 years because they're all evil and, you know, full of heebie-jeebies. And anyway, so he was already suspicious. So when he says all this, he's like, I'm going to tell the world. And Kai Wynn's like, whoa, wait. You know, the paw race are not that bad. Maybe you should give him a chance. And Salbor's like, what? And that's when she just stabs him in the back, which is crazy. And the next thing I wrote in my notes was, well, even though Ducat was exposed, Tom Riddle's diary kept their bond strong. So she's like, stay away from me, Ducat. I should knife you too, or whatever. Because as soon as she knifes the second in command, Ducat's like, don't worry, I do this every other Tuesday. I know exactly what to do here. We'll clean the body, we'll hide it, we'll say he went on a trip. Like, it'll be fine. I have a whole protocol for what to do in this situation. And Kai Wynn's like, get away from me. And then, you know, I can't trust you. I can't believe I slept with you. Ew. You know, and then Ducat's just like, I mean, you weren't complaining then. I mean, it's just a thing. And then she goes over to the book and I think they're wrestling for the knife or something. I don't know, something, but somehow the blood from the knife lands on the book. And then that's when it turns into Tom Riddle's diary and starts like revealing all of its mysteries because it only gets revealed with blood because of course. And then they're like, look, it's working. And they look at each other and Wynn is like, okay, what'd you say about the body? What's the plan again? It's like all is forgiven because we need to work together to release the paw race. And let me tell you, like this episode, I was just like, what the heck is going on? I was shocked on shocked on shocked. This is a good one. Oh, there's more. And then I wrote, Damar defects and declares war on the Dominion and Weyoun. I was like, look at Damar getting a backbone. It was the Breen, I think, that was like the final straw. And it was something with the Cardassians where the female changeling had sent a bunch of Cardassian troops and they were all clearly going to be slaughtered. And he had voiced his concerns about that. Damar did. And they were like, yes, but it's fine. This is what we need to do for this military, whatever. And so it was clear to him that the founders and Vorta, but the founders and Weyoun were treating the Cardassians the way they treat the Jem'Hadar. And Cardassians are not hatched out of an egg and they grow up in 24 hours, right? So they're not as expendable. They're not just like regenerating batteries or something. So that was when Damar was like, this is not going to work. And then he totally defects and is like, come on, Cardassia, we're going to fight against Dominion. It was great. This is a great episode. What can I say? This was a great episode. It was a shock. It was a surprise. I was here for all of it. Yeah, I was here for all of it. Okay. What is the next episode? I'm going to check the chat and then I have 2 episodes left. Now I want eggs. Did I say something about eggs? Can't make an evil omelet without breaking eggs. Now I want eggs. Orange eggs. Okay, wait. Where did I miss? Hold on. Let me scroll up a little bit. OMG, I just had a revelation. Isn't it interesting how the paw race color is always orange? Yeah, like that reddy kind of orange. And now an orange-faced person holds a major public office. The paw race are in DC, y'all. Yeah, the paw race are like orangey red, and the prophets are like a blue, I think, like a blue, like a white, like a blue. That's like saying that Satan is just misunderstood. In for a penny, in for a pound. Kai Wynn falls for the sunk cost fallacy. Ugh. Yes, and her moment of clarity comes much too late. So true, so true. Okay, yes. Keep going, Therese. Okay, we got 2 episodes left. So here's the next episode on the list.
Season 7, episodes 25 and 26, What You Leave Behind. The Federation, Klingons, and Cardassian rebels launch a final assault against the Dominion. This leads to Cardassia's utter devastation and the eventual surrender of the Dominion. Odo decides to finally return to the Great Link and brings the cure for the changeling disease with him. Also, Kai Wynn tries to kill Dukat, but the Pa-wraiths bring him back to life and he kills her instead. Just then, Sisko arrives in time to banish Dukat to the fire caves forever, before ultimately joining the Prophets for some reason.
Okay, so this is my second favorite episode of the season. Maybe my favorite, but the next one was like mind-blowing and I thought about it so much afterwards, so I had to make that my favorite. But this was a really good series finale, a really good season finale. It closed every open loop you ever had. It answered all the things. At least I felt like it answered everything. Any question I had was answered. Does Ezri end up with Bashir? Yes. Question answered. Does Worf move on and is he happy for them? Yes. Question answered. Did I really need to answer that question? No, but they answered it. Obviously the big thing for me was the Dukat Wynn situation, because I was really like, what the heck is going to happen here? But to see how that all played out, where Kai Wynn tried to have Dukat be the sacrifice, because of course the Pa-wraiths require a sacrifice. And then he comes back to life. Not only do they bring him back to life, but they turn him back into a Cardassian, which was such a nice touch that he could end the show the way he started the show, as a Cardassian. And when he comes back, he's got those like orange or red eyes. So, you know, he's being inhabited by the Pa-wraith at this moment, but he's also totally talking as Dukat because they just like reanimated his body. And he just talks so much crap to Kai Wynn. He's just like, do you really think the Pa-wraiths were going to make you their emissary? Don't make me laugh. And it's like, oh, Kai Wynn, he played you. He played you like a fiddle. You weren't going to be anybody's emissary. You weren't going to be the Prophet's emissary because they already picked their emissary. And they didn't pick you because they weren't trying to find some power-hungry person. They had engineered Sisko to be the emissary since his birth. Like, they already decided a long time ago. So it's not against you. They had just already decided this. Then the Pa-wraiths aren't going to pick you because you're not evil enough. Like, yeah, you're power hungry, but you're not as duplicitous and crazy as Dukat is. He's a much better mouthpiece for what the Pa-wraiths stand for. He's also very charismatic. And I think that Kai Wynn is charismatic too, but Dukat is on another level. So there was that going on. There's obviously the Dominion War and the fact that this whole time Damar was living underground and he had his like rebels, and Kira was training them because she knows what it's like to be underground as a rebel fighting against Cardassians. So she was training Damar's people in how to do guerrilla warfare. And it ended up, the Dominion ended up just slaughtering all of his people. It was so heartbreaking, like all of the rebels. And so then it was just Damar and Kira and Garrick living in the basement of Enabrantain's house, like the house Garrick grew up in. And the housekeeper maid person basically was like a second mom to him who raised him. So she was still in the house because Enabrantain had died last season. And so it's just them. And they're like, what are we going to do? We can't leave. We can't get off the planet. Everybody's dead. All the different cells have been exposed. And so then they have this idea of like, wait, but the people, like the Cardassian people, think that Damar is dead, but a lot of them are talking like maybe he's a ghost and he'll come back and help save the people. So they totally play on this and they rally the actual people of Cardassia to stand up against the Dominion. So regular citizens start fighting back, which is like, yay, go, citizen power. But the Dominion doesn't really do civil unrest. So they just come in and slaughter everyone, including, Mom, which they throw her down the stairs. It's so heartbreaking. They just come in and slaughter everybody. Wei Yun is like, destroy them all. Get rid of all the Cardassians. And they just start blasting away. And you're like, oh my gosh. So there's that going on. At some point, Odo and I don't know, Kira, I don't know. So at some point, Odo is talking to the female changeling. And they what do they call it when they merge? They do a merge. What do they call that? They do a merge. And they understand, they come to an agreement where she decides to end the war and stop all of this if Odo will agree to take the cure back to the home world and cure everybody in the Great Link. So the war has ended. All is not well because almost everyone is dead now. Like almost all the Maquis are dead. all the Cardassian rebels are dead. Many of the Cardassian people, just regular old citizens, are just slaughtered. And now Cardassia is just like the shell of what it used to be. It's kind of satisfying though, because of how destroyed they left Bajor. So it's kind of like, yeah, sucks, doesn't it? It really sucks. But that's exactly the point that Kira had made to Damar about like what kind of person would do something like that, because they killed his family, I think. When he defected, they found his wife and child and son, and they killed him. And Damar was like so sad, and he was like, what kind of people would do something like that? And Kira was just like, are you freaking kidding me? And she was like, yeah, what kind of people would? Because that's exactly what you did to my people. And then Damar was like, oh shoot, wow. And then she was just like, so what kind of leader are you going to be? Like, if you're going to rebuild Cardassia, what are you rebuilding it into? The same thing it was before or something better? Which I really appreciated. So all of that was really nice. What else happened? The war ended. Odo went back to the Great Link, which was not super necessary, but that's what he did. Kira ended up single, which was sad because she was so happy. Rom became the new Grand Nagus. That's all I have to say about that. And then Sisko, because he fell into that cave, the Cave of Fire with Dukat, the prophets like spirited him away and then took him into the temple, the Celestial Temple. And then he was like, I have so much to learn here and so much more to do. And once I finish learning and doing the things I need to do, then I'll go back and be with the people. So apparently his corporeal body was fine. And the prophets at any time could have just sent him back to Deep Space Nine, or he could have sent himself, because at some point he brings Cassidy Yates into like the prophet zone so they can chit chat. But he decides to go off with them to like do stuff, learn stuff. I'm not really sure why that had to be a part of the story. Like why he had to go forever or go for an undetermined amount of time. But what happens to Dukat is, as he's falling in the caves, he keeps falling in the fire caves. Apparently he just turns into a Pah-wraith, basically. That's what Sisko or somebody says, like, or one of the prophets says, I don't know. Somebody says like that's what happens to him. Like he's now where he belongs with the Pah-wraiths. So it sounds to me like Dukat became a Pah-wraith. So that also sounds accurate. A lot of stuff was going on in this episode. It was so good. It was such a meal. It was just so many things going on. It was a banquet. Great episode. Okay, so now I'm going to check the chat and then we'll go over my favorite episode, bar none, of season 7. And then I'm going to stop talking. While I'm going over this episode, let me know in the chat what you want me to do next. Like what series do you want to do next? Is there any episodes or any TV series that you want me to talk about next? Definitely let me know, because we're at the end of this series. Yes. Biowaves are so funny. Yeah, exactly. This is totally their thing. Is many of you are going to die, but that's a risk I'm going to take. Like that is Kai Wynn's philosophy. That's Dukat's philosophy. These are so many. Okay, let me get to the next episode and then I'll go through the chat. Let me get to the last episode. Yeah, exactly. With the pregnant thing. Okay, there's so many things I want to say. Maybe I'll just talk about one of these episodes or something next time so I can really just like go down a rabbit hole. But this one was my favorite episode of season 7. It just blew my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Season 7, Episode 9, Covenant. Dukat kidnaps Kira and takes her to Impok Nor, a space station under his control. He has converted it into a temple for Bajorans who worship the Pah-wraiths and, of course, him as well. This cult swallows all of the crap he serves until Kira finally exposes him as a total liar.
This episode blew my mind. I was like, what is going on? I mentioned before how much I hated Dukat when he was seducing Kai Wynn and tricking her, but I didn't hate him more than I did in this episode. This was like the maximum level of hatred was this episode, for similar reasons to what he's doing to Kai Wynn, because he's manipulating people based on their faith. And he's getting them into a really vulnerable place and making himself their all in all. And I just hate this guy so much. Like back in seasons 1, 2, and 3, it was Kai Wynn who I couldn't stand, and Dukat was kind of like whatever. Man, how the tables have turned. This one I'm like, Dukat is the worst. Also, Kai Wynn's been pretty consistently bad, so she's still terrible. But Dukat is just like, he is topping her on every level. So in this episode, it starts with Kira being greeted by an old friend who's a Vedic, and she's like, oh, hey, how's it going, dude? Haven't seen you in a while. What are you up to? Da-da-da. And then he kidnaps her. and puts one of those like transporter thingies from the Dominion that can transport you super far. And she shows up on Impact Nor, and now she's being imprisoned, where Dukat has this cult of Bajorans who worship the Pa race. And he's like their spiritual leader. He's their emissary, speaking to them about what the Pa race want them to know. And all these people have become really disenchanted with their own religion for the same reasons that Kai Wynn does later on. And so they're following him. This episode is wild. So at one point, there's this married couple who are a part of the cult, and the woman's pregnant. And they say something like the priest guy is talking to Kira and is like, they're the first people of our community who've been given permission from Dukat in order to have children because he's so gracious and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you guys need permission from Dukat to have children? What the heck is going on? Which, by the way, is like cult 101. You need permission to breathe. You need permission to wipe your behind. It's like they control your whole life. Or you give them control of your whole life. And so she's like, well, that's really weird. And they're like, no, it's not. We just trust him because he speaks directly to the Pa race, blah, blah, blah. So then the baby's born. And when they come to see the baby, the wife looks so like just downcast. She can't even lift her face. And she's got the baby like on her lap or whatever. And Dukat is like, what a joyous occasion. Let's just all see the baby. And they pick up the baby, and the baby's half Cardassian. The baby's blue. The baby is Dukat's baby. That's the only reason he allowed this couple to have a baby, is because he knew he impregnated the wife. I mean, he knew he was having an affair with the wife and she got pregnant. So he's like, oh yes, you guys are allowed. Unfreaking believable. The baby comes out blue. I was like, oh, like I literally gasped out loud when I was watching this by myself. I was like, oh my gosh, that's Dukat's baby. Like I freaked out. Then Dukat totally goes on the offensive. He goes up and he goes, it's a miracle. The Pa race have created this baby to look half Cardassian, even though it's fully Bajoran. You guys are definitely the mother and father. Okay, Bajoran guy, you're definitely the father. But the Pa race have miraculously transformed this baby while it was in her womb because it wanted to show how the Cardassians and the Bajoran people are merging now underneath the Pa race. All this like nonsense. And kind of like somebody said earlier in the chat, in for a penny, in for a pound. It's like, if you've believed Dukat this far, you have to keep going. You know, it's like, you just have to keep going. Whatever nonsense he spews, you just have to be like, I guess that could be true. So the husband's like, oh, our baby's a miracle baby. Okay. And Kira's like, that's Dukat's baby. Like, she's like not falling for it. But everyone else is like, Kira, you don't know what you're talking about. Go, you know, put her in her quarters and don't let her walk around freely and be unaccompanied because she's just a troublemaker. Well, fast forward a little bit, and Dukat and baby mama end up meeting in some random airlock because I guess this is their place. This is their place they go to be together. So they meet in some random airlock and they're talking, and he's like, why didn't you tell me it was it was my baby? So he knows that's his baby. And she's like, well, I didn't know. I kind of hoped it was my husband's baby. Like, even though we've been fooling around for quite some time, I just really hoped it was my husband's baby. So then we wouldn't have to have this awkward conversation. But you totally pulled it off when you said this was a miracle. He mostly believes that. So I think we're good. And, but what are we going to do now? You know, I feel really bad lying to him. I want to tell him the truth. So Dukat's like, yes, of course we must tell him the truth. Hold that thought. And he walks outside of the airlock and then just pushes it to like suck her out of the airlock and kill her. His own baby mama. Also, he won't get found out because he doesn't want to lose the adoration and respect of the people that he's conning. And it's just so sickening and disgusting, and I hate him. And so he pushes the button, and he's like standing there watching the air get evacuated from this airlock, and watching her being like, help, open, help. And he's just like, And then he hears voices, and he's like, oh, I better get out of here. Well, the voices are Kira and the old Vedic, who are doing a tour of this. Oh, they're looking for her because they had just talked to the husband, where she was just like, you really think it was a miracle and that's your baby? And he was like, of course I do. These are rude questions. Get out of my way. So then she says, well, I want to go talk to the baby mama to like see her side of the story. So they're looking for her. And then someone's like, oh yeah, she was going down to airlock 7 or whatever. So they come around the corner, and Kira's like, oh my gosh, the air's all being sucked out. So she opens the thing, and somehow this is one of those airlocks where it doesn't just open to the vacuum of space and then you get sucked out like any other airlock. Instead, it's some kind of slow vacuum situation where her body was still there, but just the air was being evacuated, but not like explosively decompressed or anything. So she just passed out from not having enough oxygen, and it gave her like a little bit of brain damage or something. But anyways, they got it open, got her out, got her to the little sick bay, and then they told Dukat, like, oh, somebody told Dukat, like, oh, it's a miracle, she's alive, because he tried to spin it as, oh, she must have tried to kill her. Oh no, he spun it as it was an accident. She accidentally got stuck in the airlock, and that happened. So we need to, make better safety protocols so that doesn't happen to anyone else. That was his thing, that it was an accident. But then he finds out she's still alive. So then I was like, what is he going to do? Is he going to go suffocate her with a pillow in sick bay? Like, what the heck? And Kira was like, keep an extra guard on her while you're healing her in sick bay. And they were like, Kira, what are you talking about? You're crazy. Like, she's fine. And she was like, no, seriously, this was no mistake. This was on purpose, and it's going to happen again. And she knew immediately it was Dukat, and no one's believing her. And how frustrating is that? Anyways, she confronts Dukat and is just like, everyone's going to find out that was your baby. And then what are you going to do? And he's like, you're right. I have to figure this out. So he goes back to his quarters and he starts praying to the power rates, and he goes, there's only one solution: mass suicide. But not me, of course. Them, the people, the followers. Me, I'm going to be fine. He didn't say that part. He was just like, there's only one solution. I know what I have to do. So at this point, I don't know what he's planning to do. I thought maybe he was going to run away in the middle of the night, so that way he doesn't have to face it, or I wasn't really sure. And then cut to the next scene where he's holding this little pill, and he's like, once we take this pill, we will be one with the power rates. I was like, oh my gosh. I did not know he was going to go that direction. I thought he was going to leave. Not that he was going to not allow these people to live if they didn't worship him. Like, the level of evil, it's impressive and horrific. And Kira stops him. She jumps on him right as he's doing his speech, right before they all put the different pills on their tongues, and knocks him down. And then he starts freaking out. And they're like holding her, and she's like, don't you guys see what's going on? That was his baby. That's the reason why he's doing this. Da, 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 da. And the husband is in the crowd with the blue baby at this moment. And she's just like, what are you talking about? My baby's a miracle. And everyone else is like, yeah, you know what you're talking about, Kira. And she looks over, and and Dukat is like frantically picking through the pills. He's trying to figure out which pill he was just holding. And then Kira realizes something, and she goes, what's wrong, Dukat? Aren't all the pills exactly the same? And again, I was like, what? He was going to take a fake pill while everyone else took a real pill? Oh, again, like the level of evil is outrageous. And everyone looks in there like, wait, what? That's not true, is it? Because the Vedic, the friend of Kira's, was like, it's okay that you lost your pill. We got a whole bucket of pills. So here, take another pill. And he didn't want to take it. And that's when she was just like, oh, your pill was different, wasn't it? And he was just like, well, you guys don't understand. I still have more to do. The power rates have so much more for me to do in this world. So it's not my time to leave. It's your time to leave. And then they're like, wait a minute. And then it's like the veil falls from their eyes and they see the truth. And the baby daddy looks down and goes, this is your baby. This baby's blue. This is your baby. And so they all turn on him. And then he does what I thought he was going to do in the first place. And he just beams away because he can't handle having people not like him and respect him and trust him and all the things. And this episode, I don't know. I thought about it so much afterwards. This was such a good episode. So disturbing. I have never hated a fictional character more than I hated Dukat in this episode. And then everything he did in the future with Kai Wynn and all that stuff, it just like added to the hate. Just sprinkled on a little bit of salt and pepper onto that hate. But yeah, such a good episode, such a good season. I skipped a ton of episodes. So if there's an episode in season 7 that you love that I didn't mention, definitely drop it in the comments below to let me know. Okay, I'm going to check the chat and then just like the last few things and then call it a night because it's night for me. And then I'll have to read all the rest of your comments offline. Yeah, I might agree with this, that this is the most evil thing I saw in Star Trek. I might agree with that. I might have to think about it, but yeah. This was crazy to me, Win Grace. The way he was able to just be like, this baby was actually from the Paul race because of the miracle. Because, I mean, I was just like, he's just spitting all this stuff. And it seemed so legit. Like, they all were just like, yeah. And I was like, how did he do this off the top of his head? Kind of impressive. Yes, I did watch all of Battlestar Galactica, the 2006 reboot. I never watched the original. Yeah, I love how Kira knocked all the pills out of his hand. That was so awesome. Yeah, who knew that it was going to be the linchpin was that moment. Yeah, that's a bully or a thug for you. They are all or nothing, my way or no way at all. There's no shades of gray, only black and white. 0 or 1, yes or no. Was that episode where Kira and Jake are possessed by the Paw Race and the Paw Race to face off with in season 7 or 6? It was not in season 7. I think it was in season... I feel like that was in season 5. I could be wrong, though. But I feel like that was in season 5 where they had to face off. Because it was something like Cisco had to make a choice or whatever. And then remember Kai Wynn interfered because she was mad that she wasn't a part of it. So she like killed both the Prophet and the... Or changed the frequency. Or she did something so that both the Prophet and the Paw Wraith fight had to stop. So Kira and Jake both lived. So one of Patty's favorites is Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite. Yes. I totally had flashbacks of that. And it was just like, oh, Ducat's the worst. Okay, I'm done now. If you have something, if you have an episode, a series, a show, something you want me to watch or review, let me know in the comments below, because we have finished this particular series of talking about my favorite and least favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for watching, if you're watching on the replay. And I will see you next time.